Hello everyone, I'm Zina, and I thought after my two last videos were just book tags, maybe this time I should do a video that actually talks about what I've read. First of all, just a little note, I've already encountered my first frustrations as a newly minted booktuber, which is that I've seen a few comments in my notifications which I then wasn't able to access. I couldn't respond to them, I couldn't like them or anything like that. I tried to find them in the held for review part and they weren't in there either. So if you were one of the people who were so kind to, write me a lovely comment, please don't think that I'm that rude, that I'm ignoring the people who make that effort. I just couldn't actually find them. So thank you anyways, and thank you to everyone else who's welcomed me very warmly, and yeah, let's get into it. So first things first, what I've recently finished. The last book I finished was Ottessa Moshfegh's Eileen, which I don't have here because I read it as an ebook. If I figure out how to put pictures in videos, you shall see one over here. If not, yeah, this will just look awkward. Yeah, so I'd read her book, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, maybe a little over a year ago, and really enjoyed it, even though it was very much out of my comfort zone, really. But I think there was something refreshing about a woman writing about such, well, grubby and uncomfortable subject matters, and she did not disappoint with this one either in that regard. It's kind of, if you've read if you've read the other one before, you probably know maybe she doesn't write very likable main characters, which I find kind of refreshing, likable, I guess. And it was weird because so she's really not likable, and she's very well, grubby and dirty, and yeah. Somebody in our group read, oh yeah, I should mention that was a buddy read with Shan from Pastori Time and two other people, which I don't know actually if they have channels. I assume they might. I should probably check that, and if they do, then I should probably put some links underneath. Yeah, so I tagged along on that buddy read, kind of, cheekily. Yeah, so one of them, I think it was Shan, who said they all need a wash, and that is very much how that book feels. Also a very unlikable dad, alcoholic. Yeah, I don't really know how to do this. This is my first try at this. Yeah, but I liked it, even though, for a long time there's sort of this feeling that, everything in this character's life is absolutely terrible. It's sort of abject squalor in a way, which doesn't sound like, a comfortable read or anything like that. But the good thing was, I think the redeeming quality was that the whole story is told by an older Eileen, who is looking back, and she's commenting on herself at the time. So very often there's a lot of sort of wisdom of hindsight, and the wisdom of being older as well. And so those comments she makes about her past self are quite funny sometimes, and so I think that gives it, that kind of rescues it over that sort of hump of just being, just an all-round terrible life that is being described. Obviously, I don't want to spoil it, so there's another aspect that to me made it a bit more palatable. Actually, I don't think this is this is not a spoiler. So she basically she escapes that sort of life, and she teases you with the sort of events that unfold that make her leave really sort of suddenly, and she teases you along all through the book, which can also sometimes maybe seem a bit gimmicky possibly, and I did feel like that occasionally, but then I thought, well, it is very successful in propelling me to read more. Yeah, and ultimately I think it comes down to me really liking Ottessa Moshfegh's writing style, which kind of kept me going and, you know, kept me along the ride. So yeah, ultimately it was a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm quite generous with my star ratings, I think, when I compare it to others. I think it could have theoretically be a 3-star because some of the ending I wasn't quite sure about. But yeah, when I compare it to other ones, the writing was too good for 3 stars in my opinion. Yeah, so that's that. If you feel like you can bear, you know, disgustingly detailed descriptions of bodily functions and dirt all around, also abuse, sexual abuse and verbal abuse, then you might want to give it a try. The other one that I have, so then the next one that I finished a few days ago, or maybe a week ago, can't remember now, is Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. So to my shame, I must admit that I did not read this in university, and a lot of people are made to read this in sort of their first semester. But I managed to get into one of those introductory courses that were solely focused on American literature, so Woolf was not on the curriculum. And I thought it's about time to remedy that and read it. And this was a buddy read with Mark Nash and with Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, which was very, very enjoyable. And I have to say that the buddy read helped me along quite a bit. So obviously there was a lot to love, I think, in this book for me, but I don't think it was not as amazing as I hoped it would be. That sounds, yeah, incredibly vague, but yeah, that's how I feel about the book. Virginia Woolf's writing can be absolutely brilliant and sort of breathtaking in some places. And I did, you know, underline so many different sentences that I thought were just amazing in how apt they were, but also, you know, apt, but at the same time, absolutely not obvious. Like, I mean, certainly I wouldn't know how to write that. Clearly, I'm not a writer, but even lots of other writers wouldn't, you know, wouldn't have that quality. But at the same time, there were also a lot of sections that really felt like work for me, where I just read on because I was hoping to find another one of those sentences. And also I think certain plot points just didn't interest me in any way, shape or form, whereas others were incredibly compelling. So for me, the most compelling ones were Septimus, who is a shell-shocked soldier who's come back from World War One, and his, you know, as we would now call it, PTSD and his depression, who's incredibly desperate, and his wife, who is also desperate to try and connect with him and to try and, you know, help him in some way. That was the most compelling part for me. Clarissa Dalloway was also very interesting in parts, mainly I think in the beginning to me, when she's running through London and there's this hustle and bustle of the city, which is incredibly well captured in the prose. But then other characters I could not wait to get past. So, you know, and then I kept sort of putting a lot of hope onto the last bit, the party that she's preparing for, and it was quite a letdown in a way. Not a complete disappointment, but yeah, so at the end, this was a 4-star read for me, whereas the reading experience of the buddy read was 5 out of 5. Because Jason was also very often pointing out a lot of these poetic passages that may have gone under the radar for me And so that really enhanced the reading experience, I guess. Yeah, so that's Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And I'm seeing that I'm already going on to 10 minutes. That's ridiculous. So then I wanted to talk about 2, but maybe I'll just talk about 1. So the other book that I've also recently finished was What My Mother and I Don't Talk About by Michele Filgate. So Michele Filgate was the editor of this, she also wrote one of the essays. I should probably preempt this with, it's an essay collection. It's personal essays about, what it says on the tin. What My Mother and I Don't Talk About. So there's a lot of different writers from diverse backgrounds who have written these personal essays about this topic, about their relationship with their mother and sometimes also their father, because that kind of often gets tangled up. And Michele Filgate also wrote one of them. Makes sense, right? I listened to this as an audiobook, which I thought was very successful in parts. It was narrated by a few different, voice actors and actresses. And that sometimes helped a lot. But then the problem was that I just could not get along with one of the voice actors. So every essay that was read by her, I feel like I may have been unfairly biased against because I didn't like her voice. And I can't really help myself there. I still listened to it because it was interesting enough, but I kind of had to do it despite the narrator instead of, helped along by it. But anyway, so these sort of outer, external factors aside, I really, really enjoyed this. I think it was also a 4-star. Seriously, this seems to be my most used star rating is 4. Whatever. So 4, I did try and sort of discount the fact that I didn't like the one narrator. It was more about also certain essays seem to kind of not quite hit the mark of what I expected, but that may just be me. And of course, as with all these types of collections, with so many different writers from different backgrounds, I do think it's quite normal that you will, that some of the essays will resonate more with you than others. But ultimately, there was a lot more that I really enjoyed here than what I didn't. And the best thing for me in this regard was that it also kind of prompted me to reflect a little bit on my own relationship with my parents and sort of put some things in perspective, which in a way that I hadn't done before, and I also hadn't considered these things either ever or in a long time. And I think that's kind of what the best writing does, right? It makes you think and not just sort of consume it. So it's stayed with me for a while now. I think I finished it at the end of January, if I'm not mistaken. And I can definitely recommend it. But maybe if you're like me and a bit iffy about narrators, give it a try. It was on Scribd. If you use Scribd, give it a try without having any extra cost, or just pick up the printed version maybe. So that was the last one. There was another one, The Burning God, but I feel like I can't do it justice if I try to make this video not incredibly long. So maybe it'll come up in the next video if I can't find something else to talk about. So and then my current reads, I'm still in the middle, no, not in the middle, kind of in the first quarter or so far of Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I've taken off the dust jacket, that's why this may not look like what you normally see. I don't like dust jackets on them, to leave them on there when I'm reading them, because they just get damaged so easily. So I'm in the middle of that, really enjoying it so far. Although at the moment I feel like it's not quite what was promised to me in the loads of the descriptions that I've heard, and probably also on the dust jacket. well, we'll see. We'll see how things pan out over time, because I haven't even read half of it, so what can I say? But so far I really, really enjoy the writing style. I don't think I need to talk about what it's about. It's been everywhere, right? And then that's the only one I'm reading at the moment, apart from a lot of books that have been on my currently reading on Goodreads for ages, because I sometimes end up putting loads, starting loads of books, putting them down for no real reason, not like I'm not enjoying them or I want to DNF or whatever. Sometimes I get distracted by shiny new things, and sometimes my mind isn't in the right space to read a certain book. So these ones I'd like to get to sooner rather than later, but I'm not sure if I will. One of them is White Noise by Don DeLillo. I think I got like 100 pages in or something, or 120, and I really enjoyed it. But somehow, I think I started at the end of my last holiday. Yes, I managed to get a holiday in between the pandemic in the summer. I feel incredibly lucky. It seems surreal now that somehow worked. But yeah, I was traveling back, and then all of a sudden I was not on holiday anymore, and then I kind of lacked the momentum, or lost the momentum, and then it was just put aside. And then there's a few others. Can't even remember now. Well, if I can't remember, I should probably either start them again or just take them off the currently reading. But I might cut this out. I don't know. This is too much rambling. But lastly, what I want to start soon, either after Hamlet or maybe parallel. I do sometimes read parallel. Is for, I guess, prompted by the fact that it is Black History Month in the US at the moment, I thought I should pick up Another Country by James Baldwin. I've had this for a while now. I picked it up in one of those second-hand boxes that were outside of one of my local bookshops. So they normally sell new books, but this they also sell these sort of donated books for €1. Oh, I still haven't taken it off. For €1, or €2 if it's hardcover, and they donate all the proceeds to Doctors Without Borders. So you can kind of feel okay about buying this stuff, whatever. Yeah, and I had heard about James Baldwin before. I'd never read him, and I saw this and another one by him, Go Tell It on the Mountain. They were both in there, and I just picked them up. How much can go wrong? €1 each. And then, of course, now I've heard so much about him on BookTube as well. I think it was Brian at Bookish who talked about this book in particular last year, possibly during Black History Month, or maybe not. Can't remember, but he definitely mentioned it, and he talked about how amazing it was, and how mind-blowing it was. So it's been on my sort of radar for a while since it's ended up on my shelf, and I thought this would be a good moment to start reading it. What I also really like about buying secondhand books is sometimes, how old they are sometimes. I think I looked it up, and this one was printed in the 70s, and it was, I love how, looking at the cost, it was, I don't know if this will focus, it was 35p in the UK. But I paid €1, so it's not that bad, 50 years down the line. Yeah. So that's my next read after Hamlet, or possibly parallel to it. And then if I feel I have more capacity, mental and time capacity, I would like to get to one of my Toni Morrison novels that are on my shelves. One is The Bluest Eye, and the other one is Beloved. I have started Beloved once for a class. It was one of those survey classes, so there was a lot to read. And I have to admit, I didn't finish it. I would very much like to, because I remember liking it. I just didn't have the time. I had to revise too much, and it is what it is. So maybe one of those, but I'm not quite sure which one. And I'm not very good at setting TBRs so far, or well, I'm good at setting them, but I'm not good at following them. I'm clearly the typical mood reader. So we'll see about that. Maybe I'll tell you in the next one. Or, you know, in however many weeks it takes me. I'm also a slow reader. I'm not sure if I'm always slow or if it's because it's all in English, which is not my native language. I do think I can read quicker in German, but I tend to rarely do it, so, you know, I have one of that. I think at one point I was interested and I timed myself and was like, whatever, a page a minute, depending on what kind of text. I don't think that's very fast. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's another challenge about this booktube channel, is to not feel pressured to read quicker or more than I do, because I do kind of want to keep this as, you know, a fun thing I do and not something that feels like a chore. Anyway, that's me rambling off again. Okay, so if you have any thoughts on the books that I've read, or also the ones that I would like to read soon, please let me know. Especially if you think there's, you know, one better way. What am I saying? Especially if you think it's better to start with either Beloved or The Bluest Eye. Let me know, because I would love to have some advice, because somehow I can't make up my mind what I want. Okay, have a lovely weekend, and I hope to hear from you. Bye bye.